Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our fifth Brain Matters webinar series, Forgiving the Man Who Forgot, Grateful Gratitude Attitude with Irene Walker. My name is Susan Oster, and I'm the Coordinator, Dementia Friendly Communities with the Alzheimer's Society London and Middlesex. I will be the MC and moderator of today's webinar. Dina Boone, our public education coordinator, will be our technical support person today. At the Alzheimer's Society, our role is not only to provide programs and services to people who are going through the journey of dementia, but also to provide dementia education and to advocate for those living with cognitive disabilities. So before we begin, I have a little business to go over relating to the webinar experience. Please note that your cameras are off and microphones are muted for the webinar. This event is being recorded and will be available in the future on our website. And for those of you who are here and anyone who's registered, you will get advance access to that recording. So at the end of the talk, we will have approximately 15 minutes for a moderated Q&A. We will do our best to address as many questions as we can. During the presentation, if you have any questions for Irene, please add them to the Q&A box. If you would like your question to be anonymous, please click the Send Anonymously box before clicking the Send button. If you are having any technical issues and would like to communicate with me or with Dina, please type in the chat box. You may need to move your cursor around to see the Zoom controls and icons. You can submit your comments to our panelists. And certainly if you have, again, a question, please put that question in the Q&A box versus the chat box. And next, just a little disclaimer. Again, a note, we've been doing this for 8 webinars recently. Any opinions expressed by participants are their own and are not necessarily representative of the Alzheimer's Society London and Middlesex. So today we have the great pleasure of welcoming Irene Walker. Irene Walker has lived in Oakville, Ontario for the past 24 years. She is the mother of 2 children, a 19-year-old daughter and a 22-year-old son. She has been a realtor for the past 11 years. She has also previously worked in recruitment, sales, and retail, and has owned her own small businesses. At university and college, Irene studied finance and business. Last fall, Irene published her memoir, Forgiving the Man Who Forgot, Grateful Gratitude Attitude, chronicling the journey which began with her husband Robert's diagnosis with young-onset dementia at the age of 51. I will mention that we will have a draw at the end of the webinar to give away 3 copies of Irene's memoir. And note, you must be present to win, so present, so we can tell if you're here. So now, please welcome Irene.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Happy spring, first of all. Isn't it nice to see this beautiful weather? Oh my gosh, I love it. I have never been so excited about a season in my entire life than welcoming this spring season. I wanted to start out by saying how grateful I am to be given this opportunity to share my story with you. And I feel that by sharing our stories, we can help each other get through the dark times. And we need to understand that this is just part of each of our tapestries of life. This isn't, something that is going to, we're in these chapters. They're not going to crush us. They're not going to take our life away. They are here for us to help us grow. In 2020, I self-published my memoir, Forgiving the Man Who Forgot, Grateful Gratitude Attitude. And it's a story of love, resilience, forgiveness, and gratitude. So I'm sure you're thinking, okay, why does her story have anything to do with me? Over 8 years ago, as Susan had said, my husband was diagnosed with early or young onset dementia. So before I go and unwrap all of that, I'll just reintroduce myself too. I'm Irene Walker. I'm a mom, first of all, an author, and a realtor. And I went to college and university for business and finance. I've owned and operated a few of my own businesses. I worked in finance, realtor. As a realtor, I worked in recruitment and in sales. And again, I've lived in Oakville, Ontario for over 24 years. My son is 22 years old. My daughter is 19, and they're doing their university online. And some subjects are challenging, I guess, depending on the teacher. And but for the most part, you know what? They're doing great and working very hard. And I think we've all gained this flexibility and managed during this pandemic. I think we've been kind of forced into doing that. For my kids and myself, this whole non-socialization is what has been, I think, a challenge for us all. But I feel like we're coming to the end of this type of existence. So with the vaccines, and I guess it's the weather, I think this is a wonderful immersion into life again. I have 3 Yorkshire Terriers that are about 6 pounds of might and fun, and they have been wonderful company for us. I've been a realtor for over 11 years, and I love making people's dreams come true for my clients. It's been busy and intense and exciting in this real estate market for the last 9 months, and I feel like I'm doing my part to help the economy. I am amazed that it has been a year that we have been in this altered COVID world lockdown. My couch has developed a permanent groove at the bottom, which seems to be getting larger. And thank goodness for Netflix. But we see an end to that, which is great. I wanted to talk to you about my book and share my personal story of the journey before, during, and after my husband's diagnosis with early onset dementia. In my book, I talk about my Scottish parents growing up during the war in Glasgow and give you a glimpse of what they had to endure in their childhood and coming to Canada after they got married at the age of 20. That is my children's age. I mean, I can't even imagine that. But there they were coming to a brand new country, not knowing anybody. Talk about resilience and bravery right there. My folks instilled in me and my 2 sisters that we were strong, that we were resilient, that hardworking work ethic, and also living and having a fun and positive side of life too. I tell funny stories of my childhood and my childhood girlfriends that I am lucky enough to still have as friends, even though we're busy, crazy, successful women. Some of us are scattered around the world, but there's nothing like a true, powerful friendship that endures the miles and the years and still remains secure. I open up my heart and tell you about my love story of meeting my husband, Robert, dating, falling in love, getting married, buying our first home, and our wonderful pets. The trials and tribulations of my miscarriages that I had, but then being blessed and able to have our own children. So you can show the slide of Robert and I if you want, Suzanne. Oh yes, look at how young we were. Oh my goodness. So that's our wedding picture in 1996. You think you have everything figured out when the university throws you some hoops and ups and downs your way, and you have to go through it in order to be this better person, like this 2.0 version of yourself. We're always developing and learning. I've always been the sort of person who believes that the glass is half full, a true zest for life, a heck of a lot of fun, seizing every opportunity to have a good, healthy laugh. I try to combine this with not being too naive or foolish. I believe that when faced with a problem, most people will do the right thing. I have the good fortune of meeting amazing people and blessed to have a great family and extraordinary friends. This is going to be my 25th wedding anniversary coming up in June. But 11 or 10 years ago, I noticed a negative shift in our marriage. My husband was becoming uninterested in the kids, with working a steady job in our marriage. He wasn't interested really in doing anything but watching movies on his computer or his TV. He was really withdrawing from life. I honestly thought he was becoming lazy, or he was losing his love for his family or me, or just being selfish. And then over 8 years ago, he wasn't working for quite a while, and then he fell into a depression and his world was shutting down. He would not go to see his family doctor on his own. So I took the bull by the horns and I made the appointment and I took him there myself. And then the doctor prescribed him with antidepressants and things seemed to improve. It was just before Christmas, and at Christmas time he was quiet, but we thought, okay, I'm seeing a bit of an improvement here. Then a few months went by and there seemed to be still some issues. He was still forgetting a lot of things. He didn't know what day it was. He still was pretty withdrawn. So we went back to the family doctor and she asked Robert to draw a clock with hands showing 2 o'clock. And despite his best efforts, Robert's clock drawing looked like a child's version of Big Ben, with the numbers beside the clock. Ugh, it was strange. My stomach lurched. What was that? I was completely stunned and looked at her. After a few more verbal tests with Robert, our doctor looked at him and turned to me and stated, I think he has early onset dementia. So she made an appointment with a specialist and the outcome was exactly the same. And it was horrible. The first month after the diagnosis, I was in total denial. It was a fog, and neither of us addressed it. Looking back, I'm really not sure that Robert understood the full extent of it all. Then came the bargaining for me. I was going to fix it. I got him supplements and went to the nutritionist and adjusted his diet, booked him for acupunctures. Sessions. For years this went on, and I wanted to halt this. I wanted this to slow down, and with certain medication it can, but in Robert's case, and I find each person is different, and each person handles this in a different way and it affects people differently. So for Robert, early onset was like a freight train, and it was pushing along without stopping and without slowing down. And each year his symptoms would worsen, decline, and then he would level out. So here I was with young teens. I think Andrew at that time would have been 13 or 14, and my daughter would have been 10 or 11. And I was trying to protect them and without sharing this totally devastating news, and still managing the household. And I still wanted my kids to bring their friends around and not be worried about their dad or embarrassed about his condition. So I just said, you know what, he's got, a memory issue and he is depressed. So he's on medication for both of those and we're addressing it. So I was, managing this household, managing all that, being the sole breadwinner, fixing things that needed to be fixed, like physically fixing things that needed to be fixed. I was the handyman and just fixing everything in life and taking care of Robert and all his needs. And I put myself on the back burner. I was in total survival mode. And that for me was when the depression crept in. It didn't announce its arrival. It seemed to quietly just pull pieces of who I was into its clutches. And I would pull out of it and get things done. So I seemed to be able to keep it at bay. But I knew it had blanketed me with low energy, not being able to capture the joy on those days. But I pushed along. For me, I didn't have a choice. My family lived down in the States, and I had to continue to move my own little family's economy along, keeping the household afloat, making money, paying bills, taking the kids here and there and here and there and here and there. The mom's taxi service was always requested and in fine form. And as the years progressed, unfortunately, his needs kept on mounting. I was thrust into a role of a caregiver that I really did not want, and I truly felt stressed. His sleep patterns were very mixed up. He would waken every 3 hours, which put me on alert. I would get up with him quietly. I didn't want to make a fuss. I wanted to make sure that he was still in that quiet mode, help him with the bathroom, assist him, and get him back in bed and tuck him in, and then try and get another 3-hour shift of sleep. Those years were exhausting, they were draining, and it was a blur of moments and years, but they were also parts that I found joy and happiness in. I did have anger, when you're going through these steps of loss and grief. For me, I did have anger at this disease and at my husband, how foolish I know to be angry with him for getting this disease. He had no control over this. I felt it took away our solid marriage because we had a really great marriage before all of this was happening. And our wonderful little family and all our exciting plans for the future of investment properties and traveling, poof, they were all gone. And the anger, it wasn't like, okay, I was angry for a year. It just kind of filtered in and out through all those years until I decided that was it. I wasn't going to blame anybody for this. Nobody was to blame. Nothing was to blame. I forgave the disease. I forgave my husband, as he would never have wanted this to steal his life. I forgave myself for fighting it and being angry, and I learned to accept it. I understood that this was just a small part of my life. It wasn't everything. And it was bigger than me. It was bigger than my husband. It was bigger than my own life. And this did not happen overnight. It's not like I just woke up and said, oh, okay, great. It was a conscious effort for me to remind myself not to react to things, but to understand things. And it was hard. I'm not going to say that it was easy. And there are still things that are going on with his care that I get frustrated with. Some days or weeks I feel like it's never ending. But it's funny how your resilience kicks in. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something so drastic that I went through to understand that we are all extremely resilient people. So what I would do for me to kind of get through each day, and honestly, if you get out of bed, if that's your one thing that you do, cheers, kudos to you. Like, you've done a great thing. But for me, each night, I would try and fill my thoughts with happy moments, things that happened that my kids did, a small joy of maybe what Robert had did or didn't do. My pets and the delightful antics that they did that day, just like any crumb of happiness. Before I would close my eyes at night, I would try and get something that would make me smile. I was able to care for Robert's needs up until about 2 years ago, as they started to become 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then I made the really tough decision, but he entered into long-term care. He actually has been in and out of the hospitals because of his aggressive behavior, because they can't manage him at long-term care, but he is now awaiting to get back into long-term care because he is at the end of the last stage. So the aggression has gone. It really is sometimes a never-ending sequence of decisions and meetings and phone calls about his care, but I'm his advocate. I am his voice to make sure that he is taken care of, that he is comfortable, and that his wishes are understood. Some conversations are more, shall we say, spirited than others, but God bless the nurses and the personal care workers who have an extremely tough job managing during these COVID times, as well as, managing the care of the patients that they take care of. And I am eternally grateful for each and every one of them. Through this whole experience that I found a simple thing like walking my dogs or just taking a walk outside, just getting outside, even when if it was the cold, cold winter, I just thought I need like 5 minutes to breathe different air. Exercise for me releases negative energy. So I do like, stuff on YouTube. I'll do like stretches or yoga. Chatting with my friends is fabulous. That's another release for me. I am trying to meditate. I'm really working on this one. My mind is a very busy environment in there. So it's hard for me to kind of shut down and be quiet, but I am trying. That's one of my goals this year to do. Keeping a positive mindset has truly helped me. It's always a work in progress. It has taken me years to be who I am now. It did not happen overnight. It is definitely something to invest in for yourself, because as I said, this is a chapter. This isn't your whole life. Practicing gratitude has helped me tremendously. So if you can show the next slide, that would be great. Oh yeah, that was us when 2002. That was our first family picture. Oh my gosh, look at how little peanuts they were. And then the next one. And we were big Disney folks. Oh my gosh, we took the kids to Disney every few years. It was so fun. We loved that. And that was one of our pets, Titan. He was a lovely boy. And the next one. Just a little information of how to contact me. But yeah, sorry, the next one. That's good, Susan. Oh, that's great. Thanks. So this has been a key for me. You become what you think. If you are clouding your thoughts with negative things and outcomes, that is what you're going to see. That is what you're going to feel. That is what you're going to invite into your life. A few years ago, I started the practice of gratitude, which you're probably thinking, what the heck is that? So every morning after I sort out my dogs, I write out a list of things in my life that I'm grateful for. For example, I'm so happy and grateful that I'm a mom of 2 amazing, happy and healthy kids. I'm so happy and grateful for my healthy body and happy mind. And I write out also my affirmations, which is another thing. So affirmations are just like a positive statement to overcome a negative thought. So I attract the best positive people that come into my life to help me attain my goals. And actually, I write them on my bathroom mirror. So I see them every morning and every evening with one of those dry eraser markers, so you can wipe them off and change them, or when you're cleaning the bathroom, you can easily wipe them off. And I write out my goals for myself. So from small to large, and I write them out as if they're currently happening. So I'll give you an example. I'm so excited to be the #1 best-selling author. And it's exciting. My feelings of grateful gratitude attitude for me is so enlightening and so uplifting. Better things happened in my life. And it's about feeling good. And when you feel good, it shows. I started to write things that happened in my life that were happy and joyful. And I had journaled for years. And after Robert entered into long-term care, I kind of pulled them out and I started reading them. And I thought, oh my gosh, these are so sad. No, this was not my life with him. We had so many wonderful memories. I wanted to change that energy. I wanted to start writing about the happy times. So I began doing that, and that helped me. And then for me, it evolved into writing about a book because I wanted to help others and help others find their joy. So you can do the next slide, Susan. So I just heard about this. I'm going to totally butcher the word here, but This is a Hawaiian healing mantra, and it is called Ho'oponopono. I'm sure I've said it totally wrong. So, but there are 4 phrases, and this has been studied and written about, and you are supposed to say them to yourself, not speak them out loud and not say them to a person, but just say them to yourself. It's almost helping me with my little meditation. And you just say it over and over again. And it is, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And when you're saying them, you have to feel these mantras. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And thank you. And yeah, I love doing it. It's super fun. I feel it's, for me, it's kind of, it clears my mind. Life really is about expanding and learning and teaching, and we are here on this earth to help others. So if you want to show the next slide, this is a good one. She believed she could, but she needed a break. So she said no. So understand your limits physically and emotionally. I'm not saying stick your head in the sand and ignore things, but I am saying for me, it's good to rest when you need it. It doesn't mean that you're stopping or not continuing, but it does mean that you can take a break and get back to something at a later time. Gosh, have a good cry if you need be. It's okay. Release that and then deal with it at another time. It's all good. Asking for help from friends and family, everybody is there and they want to help you. They are waiting to see if you need anything, and they want to do something for you. So you need to put your ego aside. You need to be brave and you need to ask for help. And I had a hard time doing that. But I was really astonished at how generous and kind and wonderful my family and friends were. And man, did I need their help. And it was great. It didn't make me weak or less of who I am, but it helped me, believe it or not, become stronger. And it can help you. So the next slide. You always pass failure on your way to success. So anyone who has been successful in their personal and or professional life has failed at one point in time. It's all part of the journey. You learn from your failures and your mistakes. It's funny because some of my kids' friends are all about being perfect, taking the perfect picture and that, showing that their life is perfect. I think that can be part of a fairy tale because life is full of ups and downs. And it really is how you manage those ups and downs is how well you do in life. Don't get me wrong. I love fairy tales and princesses and Disney. But if you make a mistake and you wallow in that self-pity, or you have that fear that is stopping you from doing something, and you've got to move past your failures, because honestly, you are missing the most wonderful things on the other side of that wall. So the next slide. So for me, change what you can and let go of the rest, because there are things totally out of your control. Myself as well as anyone else, we like to feel that we are in control of our lives and that we can manage every little thing that happens. But I have learned that some things I can control, which is great. And there are some things that are totally out of my control. It's a hard lesson. And, some days I keep learning that. It's getting easier for me, but letting go of the things that I can't control gave me better control of my life, if that makes sense. COVID, for example, it was a time when everything was shut down. We all had to take it like one day at a time. The whole world was at the mercy of this pandemic. I mean, it feels like we're starting to come out of it slowly, which is great. And this year, feels a little lighter and brighter. Change in weather for me certainly has helped put a spring in my step. And I enjoy the sunshine and the promise of better days, especially with this vaccine that's, coming to us, which is great. But I think each of us has to learn that we have to let go of certain things in certain ways, and that's just really all part of learning. So let's see here. What else do I have? So I hope this has helped you in your journey. Every day I feel the joys and happiness of a grateful gratitude attitude, and I hope you find your joys and your grateful gratitude attitude. And thank you for letting me share my story with you.
Great, just had to pop back on there. Irene, I'm wondering if you can speak to this next slide. I know you mentioned your puppies before, but just any thoughts about this slide?
I know. Are they not the cutest little things? So that was taken, those little kissy face shots that the kids do. So I did one with my daughter. So that's my daughter now. That's just in our living room. And that are my three little pumpkins that look like stuffed animals, but they're my automatic doorbell ringers. So if somebody comes close to my home, they are on full alert and let me know. But they've been a real joy, and I take them for a walk every day. It forces me to kind of get out. I know I probably shouldn't, have gotten more than one, but it's kind of like chips. Once you have one, they're like 5 pounds, and you want to keep on having more.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So we're going to, so thank you again, Irene, for sharing your very personal story and some really great perspectives and tools which have been so helpful to you. To our attendees, I'm sure you have many thoughts and questions after hearing from Irene. And we do have actually a good amount of time, so almost a half an hour for questions. And so certainly please add them to the Q&A box. That just helps to keep them in kind of our queue to ask Irene. And I do have a question to start with, and I really so enjoyed reading the book. Yeah, it was very, emotional, just from some of my own personal experiences and just seeing some of the journeys that our clients pass through. And you talked close to the end of the book about hosting a gratitude party. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more about what is a gratitude party and how did that go down?
Oh my gosh. So that was so much fun. So this was before COVID. And you could do this with Zoom if you wanted to. But once I started noticing that practicing gratitude had changed my life for the better, I wanted to like shout it from the mountaintops. I wanted to tell everybody. So I wanted to involve my girlfriends. So sorry guys, this isn't only, for me, it was an only girlfriend thing, but you could do couples, you can do anything you want. What I did was I send out invitations and I wrote on it. I had my sister design them, but you can easily do it, saying a gratitude party. And I'm a realtor, so some of my friends thought it was for an open house or something for a home. I was like, no. This is a gratitude party. And in the invite, so yes, I snail mailed the invites. I put a little card and had a spot for 3 spaces to write down 3 different things that they were grateful for. And I said, you can't write down about your family and children and friends. You had to dig deep. So yes, I gave them homework, but and I asked them to bring that, do not put your name on it, and bring it to the party. So I had my townhouse here, I think I had like 30, it was about 30 of my girlfriends who came. And on the walls of the party, I had also asked them to send me something that they were really, really grateful for. So I printed it off on a regular piece of paper, and I put it on a black construction and piece of paper, and I posted them all around the house. So when they came, there were other things that I had posted, perhaps about feeling grateful for your community. And I had volunteer opportunities that I had listed for our particular community so that they can, take a picture of that and show their kids and maybe do something like that at a later date. I asked them when they leave to take one of the little mini posters that spoke to them. And then with the little cards that they gave, I put them in a bowl, and then I gave everybody a loot bag, and I put somebody's who wasn't theirs in the loot bag. And then I also showed them what was in the loot bag. And of course, there was chocolates, because we all love chocolates and we're so sweet. And there was also a little notepad with a pen so that they could write down things that they were actually, grateful for, and start that process for them. And you can start out small. I do 10 a day, but you can start out 1 or 2 or 3, whatever is your comfort level, and you can grow from there. And then I also put in a nail file. I mean, it was to help us with our nails, of course, but also I wanted to make sure that they understood, if they have something negative going on in their heads, write it down, take it, rip it up, and file it away in the garbage bin, because you don't need those negative thoughts. You need positive thoughts. So it was really fun. And after that, I went to visit my girlfriends at their houses. I did it around Thanksgiving, the Friday of the Thanksgiving weekend. So then I went to visit my girlfriends, in the few months before this COVID hit, unbeknownst to us, and they would have their things posted of their gratitudes on their fridge or in their bathroom. And it was just really nice to see. And, the feeling, everybody had such a glow. It could have been the wine, but everybody has such a glow when they left, because, being grateful for the little things as well as the big things, I think makes your life better. So it was lovely to be able to share that with my friends. But you could do it on Zoom too, if you wanted to. You can have people share what they're grateful for and set up a Zoom party and do it that way too. If you can't have people in the house yet, but yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Thanks for asking,
No,
Susan.
it's great. And I so love that. It was a great way to kind of, summarize the book and the message. So that was lovely. And I know you included an example of one of your friends in the book. So we'll leave that for folks to read on their own. I'm just
Yeah.
going to actually, while we're going through the Q&A, I know somebody had asked in the chat box to have this screen up. So we will be doing a book draw shortly. So hang tight. But if you want to get Irene's social media handles and her contact information, I'll leave that up so you have plenty of time to get that. So I'm going to jump over to our Q&A box and see what we have. We have a number of questions now, which is great. So first one, how did you include your kids in the journey of decline with their dad?
As I said, I was trying to protect them, and they were at an age like the teen years, where at the beginning, when I said, oh, your dad has, a memory issue, and he's dealing with depression. So he's on medication for both. So he's really unable to work. So we just have to be patient with dad. And you might have to say things a few times for him to understand. Because Robert was going through this before his diagnosis, he was, it wasn't like this was new for them or for Robert. So he was kind of, in, whatever particular stage it was for him. And then as he went on, honestly, they were having their own little busy lives. So, they'd come to the dinner table, have dinner, and then they'd be off. And then I'd be the one taking them around here and there. And, we'd watch movies together and all that sort of stuff. But there came a time when I decided to tell them, and they were in their later teens. I think Karina was 16 and Andrew was 19 when I finally told them, and they both sort of knew that something was going on, of course. And they were more concerned about me. They knew that, this was what was happening with their dad, and they saw that I was, doing my best to take care of him. So yeah, that was, for me, I was all about protecting my kids, right? I was all about not making it normal, but I just wanted them to I wanted them to remember their dad as their dad. And at that point, I said to them, and maybe this was part of a denial thing for me, but I wanted them to, this isn't your dad. I want you to remember your dad of who he was. So who do you want to call this person now? And they said Bobby. And for them, it helped them when they would come home and say, what antics did Bobby get into? Or how's Bobby doing today? It kind of pulled them away from who I wanted them to remember who their dad truly was. So they did say that that helped them. So they would go, oh Bobby, when you do something silly. But anyways.
No, thank you. And a follow-up question, I think, to that is how did you include Robert's family in the journey? And did you reach out, did he reach out to them while he could?
His family has their own way of, everybody has their own way of dealing with, life altering changes. So they had their own way of dealing with it, and they weren't really part of what was going on, unfortunately. But yeah, they had their own way of dealing with things.
Okay, thank you. And I think you've touched on this already. Another question about your children. Any updates in terms of how they're dealing with this now? Again, in terms of, again, because Robert was so young when all of this happened, and the kids were, still quite young. But how are things going with them now?
I let them know. I haven't seen Robert in a while, with this whole COVID thing, and then with his aggression and stuff. So I did ask him at one point if they wanted to go. And I got to be honest, I was relieved that they said no, because, Robert it's not him anymore. He's lying in a bed now, and he cannot speak, and he's at the very end. So they went through their own. My daughter lives with me. My son lives on his own. So, I did get them help to talk to someone, and they're pretty level-headed kids, and they have no problem opening up to me and talking to me about stuff, and we address things. So they did want to remember Robert the way he was, and not visit him when he has been, kind of at this late term. Which, part of me was relieved on that, because that was something that would stick, I think, with you at a young age. And we talk about him when we're all together, and, tell funny stories about the things that he did, and his little quirky ways, and, all the wonderful memories that we built as a family. I think to focus on those rather than focusing on what's happening now, for them and for me, is the most important thing. And they do want to know what's going on with him. They do want to know his updates, and I do give them all that. I don't get into too much nitty gritty, but yeah, I do know that they prefer to focus on the better times rather than these times.
Thank you. And certainly you mentioned about them getting help, and I know that's something that sort of shameless or promotion here for the organization. That's something that Alzheimer's societies do is offer that support. So certainly, if you're not already connected with us or with your local society, please do so. And I know Irene put her contact information up and said that if people want to reach out to her to ask her more questions, and she's very happy to keep the conversation going. So thank you for that. Still lots more questions here. So did you really come to the gratitude stage after Robert entered long-term care? So when kind of did that transition happen?
Yes. My health in a way was starting to fail, my mental and my physical health. I was totally drained after, 2.5 years of waking every 2 hours, and then still, you know, having to make a living and taking care of the kids and all that sort of stuff. So I couldn't take care of him, and, you know, it was a survival mode for me. I did practice my own form of gratitudes of thinking of the better things that are going on in life, or little joyful things. As I said, when I would close my eyes at night, or when I was dealing with Robert, I was very, I tried to be as upbeat as possible. I didn't correct him or get mad at him. There's no sense in that. So I would just go, oh yeah, oh, that's great. Oh, a dog, yeah. But the true practice of gratitude for me happened once he entered long-term care, because then I kind of felt like I was finding myself again. And as I said, everybody handles this differently, and every patient who has dementia, it's a different path. I know my girlfriend's father just entered into long-term care, and he, you know, he was diagnosed long before Robert, and he's in his 80s, late 80s. So it was different because it wasn't early onset for him. Early onset tends to happen a little bit quicker. And for Robert, it was very fast. It was very fast. So um, I, um, my true practice of gratitude, of writing out my things that I am grateful for, it did happen after I had dropped him off at long-term care. But I wish I had known about this, I think, before that. That way it would have helped me, you know, with my little mindset, to be a little bit more grateful than just thinking it. Writing it, there's something about writing, you know, the written word and your thoughts and the written word. It definitely makes a difference. It definitely helps.
Okay, thank you. So next question, and you touched on this a little bit in the talk, but maybe if you can speak to a bit more about your own personal journey, about how did you decide when it was time to move your husband to long-term care, and how did you feel? How did that feel once he was moved? I'm sure there was a range of emotions, but if you could speak a bit more to that.
Right. For, you know, you have that guilt, right? You're like, no, 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 I can take care of him at home. You know, I married him. Made these promises. I'm going to take care of him because I'm the best person to take care of him. They don't love him. I love him. I can do it. And then it came to a point when I was like, I can't, like, I physically and emotionally, there is nothing left for me. And I remember going to see our family doctor, and I said, is there any way, because I contact Lynn, and I get it, like with Lynn, there are all these people that need help, and there's only so many at the top, right? And I did have some people come in and help, but even if you pay someone, or even if you have it through Lynn, sometimes they show up and sometimes they don't. So if I'm just going grocery shopping, that's not a big deal. But if I was working, it was like, oh my God, what? You can't come? Oh my gosh. So I went to see my family doctor, and I wrote about all this in the book. I went to see my family doctor and said, can you call Lynn? Because they're the gatekeepers for this. Can you ask them to see if he can go into a long-term care? Because I can't do it anymore. And they're saying, listen, you're young, you're able. We've got people who are in wheelchairs trying to take care of their spouse, and they need us more than you do. I'm like, okay. And then I was able to get in to see the specialist, which was unusual because we weren't going to see her until like 7 or 8 months out of that year. And I went to see her, and she just looked at me and she said, you probably should be checking yourself into the hospital, and you need to call in and tell them that's what you're going to do, because you can't do this anymore. And it's a shame that it was almost like a do or die type of situation. Um, and if I probably started working on Lynn before that, um, uh, maybe he would have gotten in earlier. But again, it's that whole, maybe denial or pride or guilt was the biggest thing. Um, and then when I did take him, I said to him, I was very nervous. And they called me back like 40 minutes after I made that call to Lynn. I was like 40 minutes later, I get a phone call from somebody I've never spoken to. And they said, we have a bed. Do you want it? I said, yes. And they're like, well, you have 24 hours to think. I'm like, yeah, no, I'll take it. And then that would have been the Thursday. And then I took him in on the Monday. I was all worked up that whole weekend. I was working. I was also taking my daughter to cheerleading competitions. And then when I took him in, I called before and I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I said, I don't want the big, I don't want to freak out. I don't want him to freak out. So can somebody come and take him to a program? And then I know there's lots of paperwork that I have to sign. So if you can kind of separate us, then I know it'll be easier on both of us. And when I took him, he just he had no idea what was going on. He was like, oh, okay. And he went off. And the woman, I guess, who was running it took him, and I was filling out all this paperwork. And when she came back, she said, he should have been here. She goes, I've been doing this for like 15 years. And she said, and we do not make judgment calls on caregivers who bring in their spouse or their parents or anything like that. It is not our place to judge anybody because we know how hard it is. She said, but you should have had him here a long time ago. She goes, I cannot believe you're taking care of him for this long. So here I thought, oh, maybe I should have, maybe he should be home longer, but he should have been there much longer. And when I do look back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was doing that. And it's, you think you're doing it for their best. And maybe you're thinking you're doing it for your best, but honestly, you have to give them to somebody who it's round the clock care, because they can be a danger to you and to themselves if they're not getting the proper care. And there's only so much that you can do. Like you cannot split yourself in three and do this job. And when they're not going to tell you, because they're in their own little world. They're pulling back. They're leaving you. They're not going to say it's time. You're going to know, or your kids are going to tell you, or your friends are going to say, you need, how long can you do this for? And it's like, and you can't wallow in that. Oh, I didn't do what I should have done, and I didn't take care of them the way I should have. You did. You've done an amazing, absolutely amazing job. And, take credit for that, because it is the toughest job. It really is, because they kind of age back people, Robert was like a toddler, trying to change him and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know what position each and every one of you are in, but it, if you could, if you are the person with dementia, if you can tell your spouse or your kids what you want, then tell them and write it down and let them help you, so that they can help themselves.
Okay, thanks, Irene. We'll have maybe one more question. We have a lot of questions, so what I think I might do is we'll do one more question. We might do some closing things. I know some people have to leave, maybe right at 11, and then if you're okay, I think we can stay on and just go through a few more questions.
Sure.
We'll kind of loop back and do a few more questions. So let's see. I think you spoke to this. I'm just going to do a quick scan here. So maybe a comment, you mentioned about the Hawaiian mantra, and this person, again, thank you for doing this. Again, I find failures lead to guilt, and your Hawaiian mantra is a wonderful. Are there other strategies one might try with getting by the guilt?
Yeah, the guilt, it does a number on you. You have to, that mantra would be good for that, right? It would help you heal and feel better. your focus, the thing is, they don't know what's going on. They really don't know what's going on, when they're getting into those stages. And you have to take care of yourself. If you do not take care of yourself, you cannot take care of them, and you cannot take care of the rest of your family. So it is very important that you focus on you, because for all this time, you have been focused on them, and their needs. And it is very consuming, but you have to understand that if you are feeling guilty about, getting them into long-term care, it is the best place for them. Like, they are there, they have trained staff that are there to help them. Because if they take a fall to lift a 150-pound person, you yourself, how the heck, you can't keep on doing that. Like, you just cannot keep doing that. And you have to, again, change the things that you can and let go of the things that you cannot change. And yeah, the guilt is very hard, but focus, do your gratitude, things that you are grateful for. I am so grateful for, my wonderful family, or my great friends, or what a beautiful day it is. Write it down, read them throughout the day, read them before you go to bed at night, focus on the positive, and, it will help ease your guilt. But you have to understand that, there are systems put into place, and, these facilities are there because we need them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need that for your, and I understand that they do decline a little bit more when they go into a facility, but, they might just do that decline when they're with you. And then it's really hard to get them into something. And then it's just like, oh my goodness gracious. So you do have to take care of yourself. You really do. You can't keep on putting yourself on the back burner.
Thanks, Irene. So we'll just do, I want to do the book draw. I'm very excited. And so just a thing about the book draw. So we will be in touch with the winners by email to coordinate shipping. So we will ship it directly to you. So the names were pre-drawn based on registration. So I had someone else pick some random numbers and corresponded to the list. So totally above board. And you must have attended the webinar to win. So if you've jumped off now and you were on the webinar, I did check a little bit earlier to win. So our winners are Liz C. And I will, again, if you're Liz C, you'll get an email from me later today. Next winner is Janice E. And our third winner is Yvonne A. So those individuals will receive an email from me, and you will receive a copy of the book. So congratulations. And thank you again, Irene. I'm going to move to my next slide here. So there we are. I had this up before. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your inspiring personal story. And we know that it will stimulate further conversation, and we'll come back to this. So for those who wish, again, to connect with Irene, again, her information's up here. And to our attendees, thank you for viewing this month's Brain Matters webinar. Just a quick sneak peek of next month. We are welcoming Dr. Sharon Cohen, who will be speaking on evaluating progress, reasons for hope in Alzheimer's diagnosis and treatment. So the registration is now open on our website. So again, just a quick note about our webinars. Like our programs and services are free. So donations are always appreciated to help support our mission. So just throwing that out there. So we're going to go back, Irene, and just do a few more questions if that's okay. Let's see, I'm just going to take a look here. Okay, so I think there's another question about long-term care, and I think you might have addressed that, so I might come back to it and just go through. So my best friend hasn't been diagnosed with dementia, but has an impairment. I'm currently struggling with this person taking medication on a regular basis. I'm just wondering if you had the same problems and how you managed them.
You mean giving medication?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
person managing their medications.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He, he would, there would be a lot of, So I would, sometimes they like to copy you. So I would do a lot of like that. And or not like harsh, but a little kind of tickling. So he'd kind of, all right, it sounds horrific, but you'd kind of have to, shove it in and have your water ready. I found the squeeze water bottles were better than a cup or the ones with like, little toddlers have. Is you could squeeze it. They're more for like the working out type of water bottles were good to give a shot of water. But yeah, no, he struggled. I struggled with that with him too. He would like to keep his, and he would get confused too. He would think he would have his mouth open and it would be closed. He'd have it tightly closed. So sometimes making him talk or giving him a little, not like a heart, because you've got to be careful with the touch too. They're very sensitive to touch. So just like a light little, tickle to kind of make him laugh, or, trying to immunate you by like that. I would do, silly things like that to get him to open his mouth.
Great, thank you. Okay. Yeah, and someone says, I really struggle with saying no and also recognizing I need help. What caregivers look for in themselves when they are struggling and how to ask for help. So in taking that step to ask for help.
I know. I know it's hard. It is a challenge because you think you can do it all on your own, and you sometimes don't realize how much you need the help until after you get the help and you go, holy moly, I can't believe I did that on my own. That was crazy. You just have to ask it. You just have to, if there is a particular friend, start out with friends and family first that are open. And honestly, they are waiting. Everybody says, oh, let me know if you need anything. That's kind of the standard line, right? But they are waiting to help you. And they're afraid to ask, right? Because they don't want to, think that you're desperate or you need it or whatever. But they're waiting, like they are more than happy to help you. So honestly, just picking up that phone, or if you know how to texting somebody and just like, is there any way you can help me? And it's amazing. I should have asked long ago, right? I was trying to do it all on my own too, because my family lives down in the States. So I didn't have any help at all. So it was amazing when friends said, oh my God, yeah. And sometimes, help is not necessarily the direct thing that you're looking for. Sometimes it's just listening to somebody talk about their lovely life or what's, their trials and tribulations. And you're like, oh, it's kind of nice to know that there's other people out there that are going through things, or, that, one day I'll kind of get to that where I'm not dealing with pure exhaustion and all that sort of stuff. So if you are dealing, go to your family doctor and talk to them too and say, who else can I speak to about this? And go to the Alzheimer's Society. They helped me a great deal with programs for my husband. They, put me in the right direction of a lot of things. I mean, for me, he was early onset, so there wasn't a lot for him in my area. So they tended to be older, or they were more, you come with your husband and work on art. Well, I got to work. So that part was hard, but you've got to reach out, like go on social media and, just, put it, in the search, Alzheimer's and see what comes up. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. There are tons of different webinars. But if you need immediate, family and friends are the best. And then talking to your doctor and the Alzheimer's Society is incredible.
Great,
But
thank
do
you.
it.
Yeah, for sure. It's just taking that step, I know, is really difficult.
I
Uh,
know you put your ego aside or your pride or whatever it is, do it, because honestly, you'll be like, oh, I'm so glad I did.
And you spoke to this a little bit, and you touched on this just now, but I know it's a really big, important, it's really comes up in the book, and I know before when we spoke about this before all of this happened, you talked about the benefits of friends and especially a sisterhood. So what was your experience in sharing your situation with them?
Oh yeah. For me, I just kind of needed a sounding board. It was at the point where I could leave Robert on his own at night. I would just kind of get him off into bed and he would stay there, and I knew for like at least 3 or 4 hours at that time. So then I would just meet my girlfriends and we would chitty chat, and I'd start by saying blah, 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 and this is going on. They'd be like, oh gosh, gosh. And sometimes would have ideas too, because maybe their parents have gone through it, or someone related to them. Sometimes they just listen. And then I was like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I live it, I breathe it. What is going on with you guys? Like, I wanted to hear some normal stuff that was happening, and we'd have a few little laughs and giggles, and it's, you can't knock the support of your friends. They're just incredible. They're your tribe, right? I'm lucky enough to have known that I speak about in the book since childhood. And then two of the characters are kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of girlfriends, because two of my gals were like, I don't want to be in your book. I'm like, fine. But I've met wonderful people along the way of life, and for me, my girlfriends, it's always been very strong to have a great group of girlfriends that you can leave a little text to and say, this happened, and they can send you something back, or their little form of support, or they'll call or whatever. But yeah, I think it's very important. When you have somebody who has early onset dementia, you're embarrassed at the beginning. You're like, I don't want to share that he has that. Like, I don't want people to know. And that's part of the denial, right? And then when you do start sharing, people are there for you, and having your friends is extremely important, extremely important. And letting, they know that I remember going, meeting with friends and stuff like that with Robert and the couples that we always would meet with. And I would let them know beforehand so they would understand. And, everybody would be kind and all that sort of stuff. And it got to the point where I just couldn't, bring him, and I needed just to kind of be out on my own. So yeah, I think your friends are extremely important.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. And again, really great feature of the book. And I know you talk a lot about how important that was. So, and you have spoken to this a little bit, and I think it's important. So when navigating Robert's diagnosis, did you find that there was a lack of resources for people experiencing young onset dementia, both caregivers and people living with the disease, because it's so much rarer? And are there any gaps that you both identified?
Yes, I found with early onset dementia, it wasn't as prevalent as the others. And the programs that were where I live in the Oakville area were more geared towards older. And it would be nice, but I mean, kind of at the end of the day, I guess it's all about money, right? And I am speaking with my MP for Oakville actually in April, and I'm going to chat with her to see if there can be anything that's done. And it's not like a conservative to a liberal thing. It's just the government on a whole. There's only a certain amount of money, right? So hopefully something will come up with that. But the programs did help for me so that I could have that break. Really, it was just so I could work. So the programs did help. But yeah, there wasn't a lot in my area. Now I know, Susan, you were saying you have more programs for that and representation for that in your area.
Probably not as much. Again, it's quite rare. I have heard in some areas, again, with more population, again, you can offer things that are a bit more specialized for people who are younger. So I think it is an area that I think, all of us collectively need to be looking at how we're doing it. But I think just getting it out there and talking about it, I think, is really important, because again, sometimes people don't recognize early and young onset because they're not thinking about dementia. So I guess it's just over time, again, encourage people to talk more about it. So we have more people who are being, diagnosed or recognized, and we can kind of advocate for that. So I think all of us would wish that we had more targeted offerings for people living with young onset. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, probably being aware, I mean, the person, for Robert anyways, he didn't really realize, like, he at the beginning, probably when I first noticed our marriage breaking down, I remember us talking about, we forgot this or forgot that. But then it comes to a point where it's people around them that realize that there is a problem, and not so much that they'd be, things would be said like, you took my keys. And I'm like, what? I didn't take your keys. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Why would he say I took his keys again? That's unusual. So then when I would see his keys, I would put them back in the same, we had a little bowl. So I'd put them back in the bowl. And I'd say, no, they're here. Your keys are here. So, or I remember waiting downstairs, and he'd have to go get his keys or his wallet or whatever. And he'd go upstairs. And for you and I, we would go upstairs and go, oh gosh, what are we up here for? It's something. Sometimes you have to retrace your steps and you remember. Sometimes you're like, yeah, well, I guess it wasn't all that important. Because we're like doing about 10 things in our head. But for him, I'd be waiting downstairs with the kids. We were ready to go somewhere. He'd go upstairs and, I'd come up and he'd be shaving. And I'm like, well, you just did that like a few hours ago. Why are you shaving again? Oh, well, what's such a big deal? What, and he'd get upset with me that I'd be questioning him. So I find that it was people around him that knew that there was a bigger problem than he himself. So yeah, the more information I think that you get, and it's, it's the same as somebody who is in their 80s with dementia. I think early onset is under 65. So it's the same if, what you're going through, whether it's early or, regular dementia. And dementia is that umbrella. So it's Alzheimer's is in there, early onset is in there, Parkinson's, all that sort of stuff. But it's honestly, just Google was like what it is now is incredible, even compared to what I was looking at, 10 years ago, 8 years ago. So you can get a lot of information via that and talk to your family doctor and the Alzheimer's Society. There's just a wealth of things that you can do, but it is hard because it is not as prevalent. It's becoming a little bit more now, but it's not as prevalent. I know it wasn't in Robert's family. It was never not in my family. So I didn't know any of these things. So it was very shocking to hear this. But he had a lot of concussions when he was playing high school football, where he would be out, like unconscious. So that's what we were thinking it was in relation to.
Okay, thank you. So just taking a look. So a quick question, and I'm sure you can answer this. How old is Robert now?
He was 51 with his diagnosis, and he's 59 this year.
Okay. And So when you mentioned being in the denial stage, bargaining, the fix it stage, or survival mode, what was helpful, or what do you think would be helpful to hear from a doctor, a counselor, other healthcare worker, or friend when you're there? What would have been helpful for you to hear from those individuals? Maybe you did hear that.
Right. I kind of did the research on my own for all of those things. But it would have been helpful to know that there were different options to help slow it down a bit. And that, supplement, there's, certain things do work, diet, all that sort of stuff. Robert's Italian. So we always ate the Mediterranean type of diet regardless. But I would kind of bump up his, blueberries intakes on a daily basis, that type of stuff. So what would have helped, me reaching out a little bit more, honestly, would have helped rather than, trying to figure it out all on my own. So, talking to other people rather than, just trying to juggle and manage it on my own, would probably help. I kind of started to do that when it was harder on me, when I thought, oh God, I don't have a choice. I need help, right? Whereas if you talk to people beforehand and discover things beforehand, before you actually need it, then you feel like you're in a better position, right? You can change the things that you can change and then not worry about the other stuff because it's not happening right now, or you'll deal with it when you deal with it, type of thing.
Right.
So yeah, it's just talking to more people and educating yourself, and going to a specialist who does specialize in this. There are some bad ones out there that we went to, wasn't a good one, and then we found a fabulous one, and it made a huge difference. Huge difference.
That's great. Thank you. I think this is a good spot to end. And I'm just scanning the other questions. I think we've touched on almost everything already. And again, Irene's happy to hear from you if you still have other questions, or you can email me and I can make sure that you get in touch with her. So again, thank you. I know there's still some folks who are hanging on. So thank you for staying on and going through the Q&A with us. And thanks again so much to Irene for being with us for this long period of time and in answering the questions so honestly and openly. And so again, when you depart, you can click the leave button on your screen and please complete the evaluation if it pops up, or you can take a picture of that funky QR code on the screen and that will bring us the evaluation. So thanks again, Irene, and thanks to all who attended today.
Well, thanks so much for the invite. I hope I've helped some people out there. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask, and you're not in this alone. You are not in this alone. We're all here to help.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing.